Alright, in this tutorial I'm just going to talk about a new feature that we've added to the latest release of Sidewinder, and that's essentially our easy profile. So when you open Sidewinder and you go ahead and select a new file, rather than the old original screen that you used to see pop up, we've now got this easy profile window. And this is part of the geometry, conveyor geometry tab. So if I click on whatever, main or the info, whenever I click on the geometry button, you can see it now has the easy profile. We still have a vertical profile, we still have the conveyor profile. The easy profile is just another window we've added at the beginning because again it's kind of in a logical order. The easy profile essentially creates the vertical profile, which as you know creates the conveyor profile. So let's just jump into this once. I'll show you a quick example. You can go ahead and enter my conveyor elements as we would in the vertical profile, but there's just a few less options here, so it's just the conveyor profile itself. The first element, whatever its length is, it'll actually always be split into three. There's a little transition, a loading station, and then the rest, whatever it takes, whatever length it takes to make up that conveyor. So you can see here we've just got one element, but if I jump to the vertical profile, it's actually got three just to give us that loading point. So let's say we go over, let's say 65 meters and maybe up 15 meters. And then we'll go over, say 50 meters, we'll go flat. Let's go down 10 degrees. And you notice here I can either enter the element length or I can enter a slope, either or. If I say -9, you see that's minus 10.2 degrees, or I can say exactly -10, whatever, just some extra options we're adding there. And then let's go over, I don't know, 75 meters flat. So we've just got a simple conveyor here. Now I can go ahead and also enter radiuses if I want, 15 or whatever, 50 meters, so on and so forth. I can go ahead and enter radiuses, just like we did on the vertical profile. We'll just leave it without them for now, just simply. But this is really the neat part of what we've added. As far as the whole tail layout and the head layout, as you know before, you used to have to go in the vertical profile here and you could use the insert layout button, or you'd have to go through and enter all your pulleys and your wrap angles. In the easy profile, we've essentially just added, when I click on my tail layout, you get a whole bunch of different layout options here. So for example, I can say let's just have a regular tail pulley. So I can just click on the regular tail pulley. And at the head here, let's pick a head drive with a vertical take-up. So I just click on that, and you see it automatically just pasted in a head drive with a vertical take-up. And if I go over to my vertical profile, I can see, there we go. There's all my elements, just created them. So I could go back and say, now rather than a head drive with a vertical take-up, maybe I've got a head drive with the horizontal take-up. So I can just click on that. And again, my vertical profile, you can see it's already automatically pasted that in. So it's pretty neat. I could go ahead and run those calculations, look at my results of my current design, whatever I happen to be working with. Then I could jump back and say, all right, let's maybe move that take up from the head to the tail. Let's maybe put a vertical take up at the head, and maybe we'll go with a dual drive or put a vertical take up at the tail and go with a dual drive at the head. Couple clicks. Rerun the calculations, and obviously you can look and see how that's changed our conveyor design. So being able to look at some different design options and moving take-ups around and going with single drives, dual drives, all that sort of thing is pretty slick now. It's pretty neat. Also, any drives with a snub pulley. For example, I'll just go back to a single drive with a snub pulley here. We've added some neat options. We can, for example, well, I'll just step through these. The carry side idler spacing. I could enter the spacing. Say I've got a 3-meter spacing on the carry and a 6-meter on the return, or whatever. Essentially, all that's doing is adding it into our normal idler spacing where we'd normally enter it on our vertical profile. Obviously, we could still go ahead and add all our custom spacings, whether we got specific spacing and then curves or whatever. That all works the same, but just as a quick, easy place to kind of put all this information out on one page. Pulley diameters. I'll just zoom in here. We can go ahead and set our pulley diameters here. Say I'm going to make my head pulley 1200 meters, and maybe I'll make my snub pulleys, I'm just being silly, snub pulley 600 millimeters. So can see that automatically changes that. The three classes, high tensions are typically all your drives, and anything before your drives are all going to be input as a drive type 1 or pulley type 1. All your medium tensions, so in other words, if for example, if I click on this layout here, I'll reset. These drives will all be considered high tension pulleys, and these would be considered my medium tension pulleys. Low tension / snub pulleys would be the rest. So you can go ahead and enter those. Let's just go back to our head and snub layout. The motor wrap, this is kind of neat. People sometimes struggle getting the wrap angles right. Now you can just enter it. If you've got 220 degrees of wrap, you just put that, and you can see that this little element, perhaps it's better to jump on the vertical profile here, but this little element right there in between the drive just automatically adjusts that to give me 220 degrees of wrap. Or if, say, I've got 205 degrees of wrap, boom. If I jump back in here, I now have 205 degrees of wrap, and again, it's just changing, just changing the length of that little element there to give me my correct motor wrap. So that's kind of a nice feature. If you've got backstops, maybe you got a backstop on motor 1, motor 2, all the motors, head, pulley, tail, whatever. Essentially, I can just say motor 1 there. If you look on my vertical profile, that's now become a motor and a backstop. Same with the brakes. Layout offset, this is kind of nice. Probably best described, let me go back to a head drive and a vertical take-up. And we'll just change this back to a tail pulley. But whenever you've got, say, a pulley and then a drive arrangement here for your layout, be it at the head or the tail, you can go ahead and enter this layout offset. By default, it's about 5 meters, but if I change that to 25, you see I'm just moving this drive arrangement back or forward, or maybe that's 50 meters, whatever. Works with a lot of these different profiles, like for example, well, this specific profile, same type of thing. I've got my head pulley and I can simply adjust how far back it goes. So that's quite a nice thing too. A lot of times when your conveyor might only be a few elements long, now with the easy profile you can really cut down the number of elements sometimes as well. So you can move that, kind of put it back to the middle of the conveyor or wherever. Currently it does have to fall within the current length of whatever your last element is, i.e. I can't currently say move that back to here. Maybe that's something we'll add in the future. For example, if I said 150 meters, you see it kind of has a little flakiness, but maybe we'll change that down the road to allow you to do that, right? But at this point, it's got to fall within whatever this element, last element length is. But it's still a pretty handy little feature. Also, just as a side note, when we click on this, obviously, if I change my slope, let's say down 15 degrees, you can see it automatically adjusted that element to make that correct. Maybe it's better shown. Let's say a head drive system there. That's perhaps better shown like that. And let's just go ahead and bring this back to 5 meters. But you can see, 155 degrees. That's a bit excessive for a conveyor, but you can see how when I change the slope, it adjusts that whole profile. So that's kind of slick. Whether we got belt turnovers or not, I can just click yes, and there you see it automatically added belt turnovers. I can enter a turnover length, 35 meters, 15 meters, whatever. Another handy feature that we've added is trippers. A lot of people do tripper conveyors and they kind of struggle with getting that carry side and the return side all mapping back. So we've added a tripper element. I can go ahead and say, yep, add a tripper. I can specify what element I want it to be on, number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So right here in my element number, I can say, put it on element 3, or put it on element 4. Or say you've got a movable tripper. You might want to just when you create your profile, you might want to create a element where the tripper starts and another element where the tripper ends, and then you can just look at both designs. You can say, okay, what's my design with the tripper in the back position? What's my design with the tripper in the forward position? So it's pretty slick there. Automatically is creating your vertical profile and that whole return side element and doing all of that for you automatically. Now there's also nothing wrong with going ahead and creating your conveyor profile using this window and then jumping into your vertical profile and doing whatever you want. Going ahead and modeling these, modifying each one of these individual elements to maybe match exactly how your layout is, or maybe you're going to change your pulley types or whatever. You've got different pulley types. So you can just use it as a starting point. One thing to be aware of is is that the conveyor, the easy profile, if I go ahead and make changes here, I'll just reset so you can see here. Let's say I go back in here and I make a change here. I'm changes from 65 to 75 or something like that. We're now working in the vertical profile. It doesn't go backwards, it only goes forward. So if I was to go back into my easy profile, and you notice as soon as I made a change in my vertical profile, my auto update button here became unselected. In other words, if I go ahead and make changes to this, whatever I change here, this is gonna, if I click the manual button or auto, this is gonna automatically re-update here. So it's kind of a one-way street, if you will, simply because we're getting more complex as we go along. There's certain things, I mean, obviously in the vertical profile we can do anything we want to any element we want. So anyhow, you can use this, like I say. Yeah, a lot of conveyors, this is going to work great. You're probably never even going to go back into the vertical profile for a lot of conveyors because there's so many different options here. And, of course, this is always evolving, just like Sidewinder itself. We are always looking for feedbacks and comments, good and bad, and I'm sure there'll be lots of new little things added as soon as this is released, because I think a lot of people are going to find this very handy. So, very good.